Friends, welcome everyone. Welcome to this special webinar on the quiet inner voice is right. We created this special conversation because people at Sounds True have been sensing and sharing with me this feeling that something is shifting in how people relate to work, particularly at this time of accelerating change, where so many of us sense that change happening around us, yes, but also inside of us. And a question that people are asking, people who have built successful professional careers, what's mine to do now? You could say, after this career base that I've created, what's next for me? How can I best use my skills to be a giver, a contributor, someone expressing what I care the most about at this time? This special webinar is for the person who started to feel that pull, you could say, towards something more. I'm joined by two people who have lived this question. Tama Kieves, who left a Harvard law career to become a best-selling author and coach, and Sibyl Chavis, also a Harvard attorney, who left corporate law and is now the CEO of Sounds True, and my beloved friend and partner. As part of this webinar, we'll be introducing you to Sounds True's new Inner MBA program. It's created in collaboration with the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley. The program begins at the end of October with an in-person event on the UC Berkeley campus, and it's designed for people who are seeking to develop the inner skills and capacities that will allow them to fulfill their highest dreams in their professional lives. You can learn more at innermba.soundstrue.com. And towards the end of this conversation, we'll also be sharing more about the Inner MBA. All right, before we start, one thing. If you already know what the quiet inner voice is telling you, but perhaps you're just waiting for permission. Well, first of all, you have permission. Good, check, done. You have permission. I've just given you permission. But I am curious, if you already know, I already know what I'm being asked to do, what that more is that's pulling on me, please just write the word yes in the chat. You could put question mark if you're not sure. But if you already have that sense, just put question mark in the chat. Also, please note this is going to be a conversation, not a lecture. Our goal is to provide you with actionable insight. We're also going to be sharing with you a practical tool that you can take with you and you can use at any time. At the end of our conversation, you'll be able to get right in and start working with it. All right, let's start. Tama, you first. How did you make the leap from what I would say looks like a life in the conventional world? Would you call it a leap? Was it a leap for you? What was it?
Oh, yeah. It was definitely a leap. And it was a leap of pain, actually. As much as a leap of faith, it was a leap of I was in so much pain on some level in my career because I hadn't been listening to myself. I hadn't been listening to that quiet inner voice. I had been doing what I think a lot of people do, which is I was letting other people define what success should be, and I was allowing that. And so, what built up to this was basically, when I was younger, I knew what I wanted. I'd had a dream. I wanted to be a writer. That's what I wanted to do. But I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, to an Orthodox Jewish family, and that was not looked upon well, right? I got, you're going to write, you're going to starve. And that was basically the go for your dreams talk. And then my mother said something like, what, you can't get a job? You're right on the side. And many of us got the same advice of be reasonable, be practical, don't do what you love, don't even listen to what you love, don't even pay attention. And so I ignored that inner voice. I ignored that soul call. And I went to law school, went to Harvard Law School, and I ended up on partnership track in a major law firm. And I just felt so empty. I mean, yes, I loved success, right? But I was feeling empty, like there had to be something else, there had to be something else. And then I kept thinking, like, what's wrong with me? Am I crazy? Everybody else can do this. And thank God a friend said to me, God, if you've been this successful doing something you don't love, what could you do with what you love? So that for me, that like struck into my heart. I like there was something between the pain and the wisdom of that I thought, I get one life. I want to know where this goes. I want to see what would happen if I started to try to listen to my inner voice. So for me, it was a leap. I ended up leaving law because it was so painful. So that's what began it.
And just to hear a little bit more, here I am introducing you, best-selling author, but it's not like you went from the leap, you rolled on the ground for 5 seconds and wrote a
Oh no,
best-selling
it happened
book.
instantaneously. I
That's right,
saw I
combustion,
saw the
spontaneous
lights.
combustion.
Yeah, I saw instant spontaneous combustion. I followed my bliss and it all bloomed, right? Of no. I will say as just a bit of, because I know we had once talked about like the twists and the turns that come up, right? Because a lot of times people are not even sure what their dreams are. And one of the things that I coach people on constantly is it's really about following breadcrumbs. It's really about following the thing that's calling you in this moment, a next step, and then a next step, and then a next step. So for me, like to your point of did it happen instantaneously? No. What happened was I started writing and I didn't even know what to write or how to be a writer. I started writing poetry. It was like, oh God, could I pick something less lucrative on the planet? But sometimes your desires are your desires. That led to writing these poetic essays that started realizing I was writing a book. Then I started realizing I needed to be around other supportive people. So that started a group. People started asking me to teach, right? And this is over a course of years, by the way. This is not like instantaneously. People started asking me to teach. I started teaching. That led to leading retreats. Then people started asking me to work one-on-one with them. I had never been a coach, and that started coaching. So my point in that is that a lot of times people don't know their path, but there really is a path. There really is a path in us if we listen to that inner voice. But it's going to sometimes be breadcrumb by breadcrumb by breadcrumb. And you have to stick with it. You have to stay devoted to your gifts and to what's calling you, right? Because there's going to be these obstacles that come up, to your point, just obstacles all the way. But for me, it's not so much that we don't want to face obstacles. It's more, how will you respond to them? How will you respond to them? Who will you be because of them? Will you immediately ditch your dreams, ditch your desires, or will you stay true and know something bigger is inside you, these gifts, this calling, this energy, this whatever it is? And we all have our own path to do that, but it will take endurance, it will take faith, it will take following that calling.
I've heard, Tama, that it actually took you 12 years to write your first book. And I noticed, I don't know, in the school of not exactly, misery loves company, but hearing that it was, like it's
Yes,
okay if it takes you a
yes.
long time to actualize something.
People
It's worth
love
it.
that. When I say that, I mean, some people think, I'm not taking her workshop. It's like I want instant manifestation, right? But what I tell people, which is so relevant to what we're talking about tonight, is that it did take me 12 years to write the book, my first book, but really it took me 11 years to heal. 11 years to believe in myself, 11 years to find this inner path, right? Because so much of this work is not about the steps that we take, right, in terms of doing our dreams, as much as it's about undoing the beliefs that are in the way, the old conditioning that's in the way, the pain that's in the way. So for me, it was all the inner growth, it was everything combined, plus again, I had a single mind thinking I was going to be a writer, but for me, my path ended up being, no, you're actually going to be a speaker, you're going to be a coach, you're going to be more than you know. right? So, yes, it does take time, but it's all focused.
And Tama, your point of 11 years of inner development, growth, and healing, and 1 year to write the book. I think that's such an important point that we think that our professional expression or our career gifts, that it's something outside, that it's our gift to other people. But really
Mm,
in it,
mm,
it's our journey of
yes.
fruitional life and coming into everything we can be in the
So
process.
important because I'm sure that so many people who are listening who are high achievers right now want to have some impact on the world or want to write a book or want to start a business or whatever we want or want to learn how to love like we've never loved or whatever it is, right? But to your point, Tammy, which is so good, it's that we have to get it inside. You know, like I wanted to be a best-selling author and I wanted to be a speaker, but I think the universe was saying, well, actually, you need to be a fire inside yourself. You need to know this works. You need to work through your own obstacles. You need to work through your own craziness, you know, and then you can serve other people or I served other people meanwhile, but again, it's just we grow and then our impact grows. So to me,
Exactly.
they're together.
Exactly. Sibyl, tell us a little bit about would you call it a leap?
You know, I'm just sitting here listening to everything Tama said, and so much just was like aligned with the experiences and the feelings that I had, and it was terrifying. You know, I would say I had two leaps. So I found myself first at a law firm, a real traditional law firm, and I got there because I had student loans. And I was going to be an environmental lawyer and I want to be an environmental lawyer. So then I go to this law firm and they're on the other side of the environment. And so then I was like, okay, well, the Dalai Lama said do no harm, so maybe I'll just do corporate law. And so I could stay at the same law firm. And I think one of the things that worked out for me is I got comfortable just being lost and not knowing and just trying to figure it out. Like I can't say I was bold. I can't say I was like, oh, I have wisdom. I was just trying to figure it out and to listen.
Mm,
And I knew the day that I got this box for discovery for the Oxycontin case, and it was all hands on deck at the law firm. And this is no judgment to law firms because I still have friends who are lawyers that are doing really good work. But when that box showed up, and my job was to make sure there was no smoking gun against Oxycontin,
mm,
I knew I had to take a leap. So I
mm,
left that law firm and then jumped and went to an advertising agency to be in-house and to work in business and marketing. And so I'm like, okay, I'm getting closer. I'm feeling good. But again, I was there for a long time and just listening and learning and growing. But there was that voice inside of me that I feel like was brewing from the time I was in law school and
mm,
talking to me. And I was really just on a journey of like getting better listening to it, listening to it when things are going great, but honestly, listening to it when things were not going great. And like, okay, I can do this. Or no, you can listen. Like, you can go. It's okay. I'm like, is it okay? It's okay. It's okay. Like, and so finally, after a couple of years, then I took the biggest leap of my life. And I had been at this agency for 10 years. My husband and I, we went there from our law firms. And the voice at that time was like the same thing Tama was saying, like, there's got to be something more. And I know that there's so many people on this on this webinar with us that have heard that voice. And because I always like say, you know what, that voice is right.
mm,
There is something more. And so many of us feel it, but you don't really know what it is. I felt though, similar to Tama, like there's a part of me that feels like I'm dying
mm,
by just sitting here pretending, like pretending that this is okay. And so, the moment I had, and again, I was scared out of my mind. Um, and I had my first child, and I was pregnant, 6 months pregnant with my second. And there just came a night, and my husband and I were talking. I'm like, we got to quit our jobs. And like we got to go after this and figure out what we're gonna do. And he knew he wanted to be a writer, and so it's how we got here to Southern California. For me, I could feel it and I had a sense, but I just wasn't sure. And so again, I just became comfortable with not knowing and listening and just going, even when I was scared. And I mean, when I quit my job, I cried. I was like, what have I done? And I had like the 3 a.m. calls, and there's just something about going through that and listening. And like Tama said, step by step, I would be asking questions like, what should I do? And journaling. And I would see so many of my friends who were like teachers and doing great work, and they just knew. And I'm like, how do they know? How do they know? And so it was just this going back and forth and listening, and something about that process just helped me really deepen into hearing that voice and letting it be the one that I listened to the most, even when I was scared.
I want to bring in my own story here for a moment because it's actually a little different than both of yours, where there you were, you'd created a career in a conventional world, but you knew there was something inside of you that would match more your real inner sense of purpose and calling. And for me, I found my purpose and calling. It sounds true at a young age. I started the business when I was 22, but yet what happened after being the CEO for 38 years is that some part of me knew I was starting to not fit the outfit any longer. I was growing out of it, but I didn't want to. So I was battling with my inner voice that said, there's something you could do and create, but you're so good at what you're doing and you like it so much. And, you're the shit. Let's just say it. You run this company, you like that. You're not going to leave that. No way. And then I got Sibyl there working for me. And she's like, Tami, I could see. And I was like, yeah, you just want my job. You're on some kind of like, you're power hungry, whatever. Get out of the way. I run this company. And then something happened. And I'm just telling to you the truth of it. I moved to Canada. I turned 60. I could feel accelerated change happening, not just in the world, but we are the world. We're part of it. It's not separate from us. I could tell how much I was changing too. And I also knew that there was something left for me to do before I died. And if I didn't get on it, it wasn't going to happen. But here's the big thing. I knew that the company needed a reinvention. And when I checked into my body, it's not so much that I heard an inner voice as that it didn't say yes. I heard a voice inside that said no. And what I mean by that was my body said, you're tired, Tami, you don't have it.
Mm.
And, my wife used to always say, the one thing about you is that you always have game. You wake up every day and you've got game. And I loved that. I was like, that's true. I got game. I got game for whatever's happening. And suddenly I didn't have game for the media reinvention that was required at Sounds True. And I had to tell the truth. And I think that's one of the interesting things to myself. First, I had to tell the truth to myself about that, about the whole inner voice phenomenon, which is it's there, it's quiet. There's the question, are you listening? But then are you willing to be honest with yourself about what's actually happening? My voice, I know how much energy it takes to run a company. It takes everything. You have to give it everything. And if your body says, who's that going to be good for? It's not going to be good for you. It's not going to be good for your business, for your employees who are counting on you. So that was the moment when I had to take, you could call it, we're talking about a breadcrumb trail. It's almost like a series of subsequent mini leaps from one lily pad to another. And suddenly I had to take yet another. I was like, really? I have to take another leap now, and I have to let go of my identity framework of success that I'm clearly good at to try to do some other unknown expression thing that might not work.
Mm.
I mean, I don't want to do that. No way. No way. I didn't want to do it, but I did. And I did because I knew it was the right thing. I knew it was right. The quiet inner voice is right. Even it's not what I wanted, because it involved a lot. It involved a lot of grief, a lot of letting go, a lot of change, a lot of unknown. And I know, Tama, in your work, you work a lot with high achievers. And I definitely think of myself as like, people have jokingly called me type A Tammy, but, or,
I would say
whatever.
type A plus personally, but hey.
Whatever, you can call it whatever. Thank you. Anyway. But, in that thing, it's like, I'd rather do the thing I'm good at than take a risk at something that might not work. And I wonder if you can speak to that.
Absolutely.
And how
Yeah.
you work with people in that situation.
First, I'm just going to back up for a second because I imagine that like listeners there might be thinking, "Oh my God, do I have to leave? Do we all have to quit our jobs now, right?" And I just want to clarify, like in the work that I do with people, and I'm sure that everybody has their own path. There's a gazillion ways to do this. There are people who build things on the side. There are people who have to take a mini leap by doing something truthful in the work they have, right? So I think our message collectively here is that this inner voice has genius for you and there's something higher for you and it will look different for all of us. So I just wanted to clarify that in case somebody was like having a meltdown there of, but to your point, I think one of the things that hurts my heart is I see the highest achievers, right? The people who are so smart, so gifted, so got game, can make things happen. And sometimes we hold ourselves back. We make ourselves smaller than we could be, right? Because, my passion is that so many times, people are listening to what's intelligent, right? But I want you to listen to something beyond the intelligence, this higher intelligence in you, right? This other stream of gifts. So with high achievers, the problem is we achieved because we learned how to get an A. We learned I jump through this hoop, I jump through that hoop. You want this, I do that. You want that, I do this, right? Like we know how to get the A. We don't always know how to listen to ourselves. We don't always know how to really feel our feelings. I'll just speak for myself. I succeeded in law because I knew how to squelch my feelings, not because I was listening to an inner voice. I knew how to stomp it down, right? And that was success. So I think the thing that I say to most achievers that I work with is everybody's so afraid of failure. Everybody's so afraid, oh my God, if I take this risk, like, oh my God, everybody's going to look at me and think, well, you're crazy, whatever. I'll just share personally, like when I was going through the sweats, like Sibyl said, like just that horror of like, oh my God, I'm dying, but what am I going to do? I kept having this weird feeling or vision. I kept seeing, like I kept imagining that it was the end of my life. And at the end of my life, it's all said, it's all done, right? I'm seeing all these beings in white robes or whatever happens, right? And I imagined that they were showing me what my life could have been if I'd listened. They were showing me, here's the books you were going to write. Here's the thousands of people you were going to touch. Here's the editor that was going to be there. Here's the agent. It was all going to happen for you, but you didn't listen. You didn't give yourself that chance. And I just kept feeling like, oh my God, I don't think I can live with myself. Like I'm terrified of failure. I'm still terrified of failure. That has not gone away but I'm more terrified of regret. I'm more terrified of looking back and thinking, oh my God, I didn't even try it. It could have happened, right? And then the other quick thing I will say to a lot of overachievers, because we forget this. We think we're so fragile. We think it's like so, one chance only. God forbid it didn't work. First of all, you're going to learn so much. There's no way it's not going to work. I promise you that. But let's God forbid it didn't work. You're an achiever. You still have all these skills. You still have all these abilities. You could cobble something together. I kept telling myself at some, I'm not going to, because my mind would be like, oh my God, I'm going to be living on the streets. I'm going to eat cat food, like not likely, right? Just because my emotions said that, like just even being practical or realistic. If you take this risk, I think you are owning that you have one life and that you want to live what you're meant to live in this lifetime. You want to know what's real, what's true, if you can trust that inner voice, right? And I also think sometimes it's a risk not to take that risk. You know, sometimes I always tell my clients, you could leave, you could take some space, go to a spa, or you could go out on a stretcher. Either way, you know. So again, I think it's just as overachievers, we sometimes have a harder time with risk, but oh my God, the payoff and what we can do in this world because we listen to the maverick talents that we have.
A couple people have written into the chat questions to begin with, kind of back to baseline about hearing the inner voice inside and having it be a clear message. In the story that I told from my own life, for me, my body, I have a real sensitivity to body signals, somatic signals. So I know, for example, when my heart starts going when I'm around somebody and I feel excited and I just want to hug them. And I know when things are like, this is really, I get, even sometimes it sounds true. I'll say to myself that this is making me want to barf. Like I'm just, some idea or something. I have an immediate kind of visceral reaction. So that's a big way that I know certain things. I'm curious for both of you, what would you say, and maybe Sybil will start with you, for somebody who's wanting, from your experience, to hear their inner voice more clearly?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had that desire, continue to, and I'm always just trying to deepen into that to hear it and to know, oh, that's it, and listen. And so, I mean, as one of the high achievers on this call amongst good company, I'm also like a crazy like dork. And back in like 98, many, many years ago, I knew. I'm like, because I was like reading Eckhart Tolle. And then I was comparing, I was like, what is he talking about? He's like hearing it in the moment, the wisdom come. And so I knew, I'm like, oh, snap. There's something more, even in terms of my internal experience and my hearing and what I can listen to and the intuition that I can be accessing that I'm not. And I made a spreadsheet. This is
Wow.
okay.
Wow.
I made a spreadsheet. Look, I told you I'm a dork. I made a spreadsheet. And I was reading all these great spiritual texts and books, and I was like, okay, this is what's going on. Like, this is how you have to first quiet the mind. And this is how you then have to settle into the body. And then at the end of every night, I would give myself a score. It
Oh,
sounds silly, but what happened is the repetition and the practice of that. I needed that because I was just so tightly wound up after law school and everything was just so driven and achieving. And my inner noise was go, 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 succeed, succeed, succeed. And I had to be like, okay, how do I step back and observe that? And so then that led me to yet another experiment I did of a 30-day stop complaining challenge, which I read some book or some article. I'm like, okay, I mean, I was literally trying everything. But after the spreadsheet, my chief negativity officer got quieter and I could start, I'm like, oh, that's not the voice. And then I started naming the real voice. I call it my extraordinary side
mm,
versus the chief negativity officer.
mhm,
And so, like, the naming of it, I was like, okay, now I know when it's my chief negativity officer. And then I'm like, wait, that's my extraordinary side. And so I just started having a relationship with them. And I didn't hate my chief negativity officer because sometimes it would be right. like, and then, but my extraordinary side would always like help and like, okay, but here's the way. And so after the 30-day stop complaining challenge, then the chief negativity officer like quieted down even more. And what was interesting is like just the practice, the retreats, the reading, the things that we're all doing, the meditation, it all started adding up. And I felt like a moment where it's not that my chief negativity officer went away, but they changed seats.
mm,
And my extraordinary side voice was driving. And then my chief negativity officer was just there in the passenger seat. And then sometimes in the back. And sometimes I'll even today, I'll be like, look, if you're not quiet, this isn't going to happen. Like, stop. Like, I'm trying to make this program come to life. I'm trying, like, stop. I don't need to hear, oh, but what if, and that, I'm like, shh, it's okay. And so that's, I just really developed a relationship with them. And now I just, I don't even take my chief negativity officer seriously. Like, you want some ice cream? If you're quiet, later on tonight, we're gonna go get some ice cream, some, vanilla ice cream with sprinkles. Okay. So that was my dorky way
I
and
like it.
continues to be.
I
Yeah.
learned things I didn't know about you. All right, Tama.
I love that you did a spreadsheet to find your inner voice. That is brilliant.
I guess. I know.
I love that. I was thinking about that as we're talking. I think it's a few things. I mean, first, like one of the ways that I think I connect with my inner voice. I wish I had the body thing. I hear all people talk about body stuff, and like my body's dormant or God knows what. But for me, sometimes it's creativity. Like that was like my first moment. Like for me, like when I started writing. I just felt like there was something larger and something like a strength in me and a love in me. And I wanted to serve this. And I don't know what the hell this was, but it was a better me than anything else I'd ever been. And it was the thing that gave me the courage, right? Because, one of the steps I always tell people, like to find an inner voice, like one thing is to do something you love. Do anything you love. Do anything you love because if you do what you love, it changes your brain chemistry. You're relaxed, you're more centered, right? Things happen, right? So for me, that was one way, was just that in writing, I just started thinking, I want this feeling, whatever the hell this is. I want this, right? And I would be a better self. Also, for most of us, when we're in joy, we're relaxed, we're loving, that's when we can connect, right? One of the things when in learning to trust yourself, the my book, like one of the things I talk about there that's huge for me was it was about creating a different relationship with myself because I kept waiting to hear this universe voice and this universe voice and I couldn't hear it and I think what's wrong with me, I didn't get one of those, everybody else got one of those, of but what I learned and what I hope people hear is that I couldn't be judging the hell out of myself, like just being harsh and cruel and mean and thinking this was practical and realistic and savvy and a way to get ahead, right? Because I kept thinking that mean, cruel voice was going to push me and make me better. But what I realized, it was blocking my inspiration. It was blocking my genius. That when you're listening to that harshness and that cruelty and that self-attack, you can't hear a loving voice. You can't hear the voice of the universe. You can't hear a different intelligence, right? And that, again, for most of us, it's like such a cultural shift to start really valuing. I like what Sibyl said, switching seats, right? Putting the extraordinary self first, right? Like that takes so much courage to value that because most of us, I think, learned be critical, be mean, push yourself, right? But that can only take you so far. And that is not going to take you into the life of your dreams, right? And so for what I learned about trusting myself was trusting that inner voice. I had to be loving, which was so hard, by the way, was not a natural skill but I had to be more loving of myself in order to hear a loving voice inside me. And it was a practice and it still is.
I want to talk directly to that person who says, okay, I'm afraid. We just have to talk about it. I'm listening to this conversation. I know what the next breadcrumb / little lily pad leap might be, but the truth is I'm really afraid. I'm really afraid. And I'm afraid of some practical things like finances or you don't know my situation. I'm taking care of
Mhm.
XYZ people. And, yeah, I could probably do it, but no, I'm afraid.
Mhm. Um,
I
do you want me
mixed a
to go?
few things in there, Tama. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's fine. No, that's fine. Totally fine. I love that you asked that because I definitely want to address that with people because, like Sybil said, she was scared out of her mind. I was scared out of my mind. You should be scared out of your mind. If you're sane, it's only, I get nervous when clients are like so convinced. It's like, like a rational person has different voices, right? So first of all, again, I just want to reassure, for me, my belief system and what I've lived and what I've taught is that everybody has their own way, right? You're just hearing our examples, right? But that if you have people to support or you're afraid, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be you have to walk out of everything right now. That really might not be appropriate for you. What I always say, and again, I come from the Course in Miracles tradition. It's what I teach. It's, whatever. It's also how I found an inner voice. And one of its concepts basically says, it's not about the decision. It's not about the step you take. It's about why you take it. Right. So it's not about like there are right steps, right? So like sometimes somebody could be making a leap because they're pushing themselves, and that's not right either. Right. So I would say that everything in your current life is set up for your path in ways you won't understand. I would have thrown up if I heard that. I would have heard that and thought, right? But it's been true for me. Like every freaking obstacle, every challenge ended up making me find a deeper resource. So the one thing I will say is let's question assumptions. Let's question assumptions. There's the immediate thought that, well, if I do something I love, all hell is going to break loose. It's all going to come apart. Maybe not. Maybe you're going to be more fluid, alive, connected, more opportunities are going to come. You're going to be a better husband, wife, whatever, because people aren't thinking of the risk of if you don't, right? If you're holding back and you're miserable, that has costs too. There's a reason people have heart attacks on Monday mornings, right? But I don't think it has to be all or nothing. Those leapfrogs, seriously, I have a lot of clients that are doing something they love on the side. And it's changed the whole zen of their work now. They don't hate their job anymore because I have people who say my job is my funder. It's my grant. I got a grant. I'm doing my dream and so again, there's a million different ways to do this, but I would just say, take a simple step as in just paying attention. What gives you energy? What lights you up? What gives you, that feeling of being alive, and what drains it? Right? And we're just going to start paying attention to that because we want to follow your energy.
But Tama, just to ask a follow-up question, because the
Sure.
first time I heard you say that, and you write about this in Learning to Trust Yourself, you write
Mm-hmm.
about this idea of following what brings you joy and energy. I thought, how is, dancing in the living room going to help somebody with the next phase of their professional expression?
That's such a good question because again, so I think this is what we're talking about tonight, really. This is not a linear path, right? This is not a linear path. It's not, it's not what my brain understands. It's more like what my soul understands. So to your point, dancing in my living room might not end up being my calling. It might not end up being, oh, that means I'm supposed to be a ballerina. Start Googling how much do ballerinas make at 74. It's like, it's not that. It's not linear, right? It's more that if I'm dancing in my living room, if that's my jam, again, I'm going to connect to my higher intelligence. My brain chemistry will change. My creativity will change. I will feel like myself. I may even find that I don't hate my job as much, right? I may even find a way to be stronger with it. But again, back to the breadcrumbs. My first thing was poetry. And I had the same thing like, oh my God, that is like ridiculous. But I never ended up becoming a poet. It was like poetry led to writing, led to speaking, led to blah, blah, blah. So what I always say to people is where you start off might not be where you end up, right? But it's just that joy in and of itself is a connection with something higher. Most of us, especially in the world right now, are feeling anxious. There's a lot of pain. There's so much extra work. You almost have to remember that you can feel joy so that you can want a life of joy. You get so acclimated to misery, and everybody else around you is going, yeah, I know what you mean. I can't sleep either, right? And it's like you almost need to remember what joy feels like so that you follow it.
Tama, you mentioned briefly that A Course in Miracles is part of your grounding
Yes.
as a person, your spiritual grounding.
Yes.
And when I introduced Sibyl, I spoke of her as my beloved partner at Sounds True. And she is a person of faith and has inspired me through the many changes. I mean, we've now worked together for what, a decade, is it?
Yeah, decade. It's been 10
Yep.
years.
and you've been the CEO for the last 3 years, but
Right?
your faith continues to inspire me.
Oh, thank you.
It is. And I wonder if you can speak some of your fears when they come up, and as a person of faith, how you work with that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because everything I've ever done and continue to do, there's always fear there. I have anything that I like from the time I was a kid. Okay, I want to get into school. Fear of not getting in and everyone seeing it. Or I want this job. Fear of not getting it. Or fear that I can't do it. And even here at Sounds True, as the CEO, like, oh, fear, all these people are counting on me. And fear, this isn't going to work out. Like, so anything good I've ever done, there's always been fear there. So it's almost like I just expect it. And I also know I'm like, okay, there's something good because the fear is here. There's something good after I get through it, and I got to get through it, right? Like it is a process. And I think it began for me. My grandfather was a preacher. So I grew up in the black church. And when you go, like for all of you who've been to black church and like heard gospel choirs, and just had those moments where you can just feel it in your heart and the energy when everything's going wrong, but there's just that moment. You're like, oh, and you remember, and like the fear lets go in your mind. I have repeated that so many times. And every time that I'm trying to do something or accomplish something and I see this fear, you know, I take it as another opportunity. Like, okay, how can I deepen my relationship with who I am, with God, with this moment? Why this is coming up for me for a reason, and I trust it, and it sucks. It sucks. It hurts. Like, and I can feel it, and I'll be like shaking. And I'm like, oh my, but I trust it. Like, and I'm like, okay, what do I need to see? What do I need to feel? What do I need to process? And so I dive into the fear. And I have found that it's very uncomfortable in the beginning. It doesn't feel great. And it is like Veronica is just saying in the chat, it is a time where I'm surrendering in the moment and I'm trusting it and I'm trusting myself and it's my process. And then it always shifts, sometimes after an hour, sometimes after 2 weeks. And it melts and I can feel something in me kind of change energetically. And it's like I've released something that needed to be released. Something has settled into my mind and my heart and the experience, and I take it into my next step. And then it's not that every step is filled with fear, but there are many.
I mentioned in the beginning that we want to provide for everybody who's joining us actionable insight, and that we're going to gift everyone with an actionable tool. And this is, Tama, something you've developed that we're going to put in the chat, and there'll also be a link if you're watching the replay for this. Can you describe what this tool is, how you came up with it, and how it works?
Sure. So, a lot of what we're talking about tonight, I think, is that, especially in the faith conversation here, even, is that it's not so much a career shift or, a life shift or what, it's an identity shift. That's what we're talking about, right? Like this is an identity shift, right? Like it's learning what part of yourself will you identify with? Because for me, the thing that I teach all the time is that the voice you listen to inside yourself will determine your whole life. Will determine your whole life. But we don't realize we have different voices, right? We think we're just being realistic or practical. This is just the way it is, right? So I developed this tool called the Inspired Self Dialogues. I've inflicted it on all my clients and on all my classes, and I swear by it myself. And it's a journaling technique. And especially it's really good when you're scared, you're anxious, you've got crazy thoughts, like, because I used to get frustrated when people would say, just go within, just go within. I'd be like, really?
You don't know what it's like in here.
Really? Yeah, I don't want to be exactly. I don't want to be in that caged craziness, right? So I didn't know what the hell that even meant. Or like when you're crazy, it's really hard to just drop down and go within, right? And so for me, it's a journaling technique. And because what happens is we're listening to one voice and we don't even realize we're listening to it. We're listening to that fear. Again, I come from A Course in Miracles ideology, right? And it's what I teach. And it will call the conditioned mind fear. It will call your usual familiar voice sometimes fear, right? So for me, let's say I'm listening to this call and I'm thinking, I love these ideas, but now I feel really triggered. I feel scared. I feel whatever, right? So you would be writing, I'm just giving a tiny bit of this and the tool will tell you all this, and I have other stuff to tell you it, but just to give you an idea, it's just that you would journal the fears, right? Or you would journal the criticism against it, why it can't work, because I want you to know what that sounds like. I want you to know the tone of that, right? But then you're going to talk to that other voice, the extraordinary self, the inspired self. There is an intelligence within you that is beyond what you know. And that is the most amazing thing about this path. That is, when we were talking about faith, by the way, I kept thinking about part of the faith comes because you do this, right? Because you get in over your head, but you're met by life and you realize you have other capacities that you don't even know. So I write to that inspired self, and I'll give you cues in the tool about how to do that and how to think about it. But it is a practice, right? It is a practice because some of us, I'll just speak for myself. I felt like, ew, it's all fakey to be loving and nice and whatever. I just kind of like got a little suspicious, like, no, you're okay. No, you're okay, right? And so like that skeptical part of my brain. But what I will tell you is writing that kinder voice and then having them dialogue back and forth, it will give you shifts you never imagined. It will give you insight. The loving voice, the stronger voice within you will remind you of who you really are. It will remind you of strengths you casually forgot about, achievements you forgot about. Because here's the thing about fear, it blocks, right? That judgment will block inspiration. It will disconnect us from our genius. And I want you in touch with your genius, right? So it's another technique for really getting in touch with that inner voice. And for me, it's a relationship I've built for years. Like when I've gone through so many obstacles and challenges, good fodder for books. But I use this tool. For me, I use this tool to get there. So
Wonderful. I do want to share one other thing, that when I was going through, I named it as a death. Death and rebirth. I was like, when people say die before you die, I know what they mean now. And from religious language to die before you die. I mean, I knew it was so much for me to release the identity that I had built my character, my schedule, my sense of self around. It felt like a death for me. And yet I knew I had to do it. And I agreed to do it, but then I kind of kicked and screamed and, got all dramatic about it, because that's kind of how I am. My emotions are, I gave myself, okay, so all these big emotions and things. But here's the other thing that happened. I reached out for help, and I got a lot of help. I reached out to a handful of Sounds True authors. I reached out to many of the teachers in our inner MBA program. I actually signed up, not one, but two of them, to function as coaches in my life, because I wanted two different perspectives on how I was going to make it through this journey. But mostly I knew I needed help. And I think that's a really important thing. And being here with us, I want to make sure that we extend. Yes, having a tool is awesome, but we need each other. We can't go, if we try to go through these things alone, they're so much more painful than I would say than they need to be, because when we go through them with loving brothers and sisters and companions and friends and allies and coaches, we are in a field of love, loving support, and it makes all the difference. And then we become also that loving support simultaneously in the lives of other people. And as Sibyl and I have talked about the Inner MBA program and what we're creating with that, that's a big part of our goal, is creating a community, an Inner MBA community. Many of the people who have already gone through the program sign up again year after year to be part of this community, to offer the same kind of transformative experience they went through to other people. To, I'm here for you now, and I'm going through it again, and I'm still learning and going to my next lily pad. So Sibyl, I wonder here, as we're coming towards the end of our program, if you can share more about the Inner MBA, our reason for creating it, and what it is as an offering really to our community.
Sure. And I'm so excited to share, about the Inner MBA. And as Tammy said, so much of everything that I feel I have done well in this world is because of the people that were around me, um, and helping me and guiding me and showing me shortcuts. And quite honestly, even being a mirror, being like, you're a little off here. And one of the things that, our team is going to drop the link into to the chat for the Inner MBA, and I know folks want details, so I'm going to also make sure I'm going to go through the details of the Inner MBA. But as Tammy was sharing, it really is about surrounding yourselves with the right folks, and that's what this program has been designed to do. Tammy and I have sat around so many Zoom calls, just really thinking with our team and being intentional and like, what would we have wanted at this moment? Like when we knew what we wanted, but we couldn't get there. Or when we thought we knew, but we just also didn't want to create the way we always created. Or when we couldn't figure out the path and maybe we just didn't even know if what we wanted. And we have all had so many different experiences like that. The folks who are on this team, it sounds true. And so we have poured it into the design of this program. I would have given anything to have had this program when I quit my job. And that was what we all designed this around. And so again, imagine for the first time ever, we're going to be together in person at the International House at UC Berkeley. And that's where the program begins and the kickoff. And then again, for those of you, and I saw in chat, it would say it was about 50-50. 50% of the folks knew what they were up to and understood what they wanted next. And there were 50% who were just like, I'm still trying to figure it out. And that's what the first weekend is really about, and our time there at the International House at Berkeley. And then it's also a time you will meet some of your future BFFs in this program, your best friends forever. Um, and so, especially when you see them in person and we're meeting and we're around, and Tammy's there and Jeremy's there and all the faculty is there, the opportunity to really just kick this program off right. And after that, we will then go online for 6 months together, after our first threshold event. And during those 6 months, we're going through the curriculum, the 6 month curriculum. And again, our team has shared this in the chat and we'll follow up with emails. So for those of you who want to take a closer look at what those 6 months are about. But the reality is that the program really is coming together for us to be able to accelerate that inner transformation, that's going to create the outer results, right? So that we can align with what's ours to do. So we can listen and hear that voice and then take action on it and accelerate it, and accelerate the transformation, if you will, in terms of us really just tuning in and allowing the unfolding that's happening in our lives. And what I'm so excited about with this Inner MBA is the faculty. And again, we were just so strategic in terms of the design of this and who will be joining the program and leading us. And I'll just highlight a few. Obviously, Tammy Simon will be there, and Tama Kieves will also be there as part of our faculty. But Melissa Bernstein, and she is like one of the most humble people I have even ever heard speak. And she's also the founder of Melissa and Doug, the billion-dollar toy company. And just the way she tunes into innovation and teaches us how to tune into our own voice and be creative it was so important for us to have her as a part of the program as well. And the opening event kicks off with Natalie Kogan. Again, such a great, inspiring teacher who is living her life in the moment and aligning and shifting. And Natalie is seated at the beginning of the program because she has this amazing approach, which is the 2 week cycle. And it's an opportunity while we're going through all of our inner transformation to make sure we're also taking steps forward so that when you get to the end of these 6 months, not only will you have this amazing thing that we're calling the inner MBA compass, but you'll also be able to see how the inner transformation and the practical steps you took together in your small groups in these 2 week cycles has helped you make continual progress. Some of you will have accomplished whatever it was you were up to. Others will have taken several steps forward. What I can promise you is that there will be results in terms of the inner transformation and those practical outcomes you're looking for. And that's really what the program has been designed to do. And I just wanted to share real quickly the couple of ways that you can join us. We have two programs. One is the signature program, and each of these come with one-on-one coaching because we had gotten a lot of feedback from other folks like, hey, I want to have custom application for what I'm trying to do. And so to have that one-on-one opportunity throughout the program was super important. And so we've integrated that in to both of our options. And then this one is very special and it's limited to a smaller group because it also includes a one-on-one session with Tami and then also with Jeremy Hunter, who are our two key faculty members. And again, it's just an opportunity to hear the wisdom of Tami, Simon, and Jeremy, but also to just complement that too with the coach and your own journey and your own inner voice that you're listening to. So that is what I wanted to share with the Inner MBA. I really, really hope you will join us. I would love to meet you, all of you, and Berkeley. And before we leave, I just want to kick it back to
Yeah,
Tami
a couple
and
things
Tama.
I want to add in. I
Okay,
saw a
please.
couple people in the chat, right? Well, what if
Oh,
you can't
good.
go physically to
Okay.
the event at the UC Berkeley campus? And it's going to be live streamed. We will have a maximum number of 340 people in person with us. But for all the past years that we've run the Inner MBA, we've had close to 1,000 attendees. Many of them are attending internationally. And so having a live stream available of the opening event is a critical piece of the program.
And it's
Additional,
October 23rd. Someone was just asking
oh, okay,
as well.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Uh, Also, you mentioned Jeremy Hunter, and just to say a little bit about who he has been teaching in the Inner MBA all 5 of the last years that we've done the program. And he teaches at the Peter F. Drucker School of Management. And you ready for this? For 9 years has been voted as I think, I don't know if it's most popular or he's the selected professor that everybody loves. And I think that's because he really knows how to connect. And I first was exposed to him because he was teaching about self-management, which is one of Peter F. Drucker's core ideas, which is you really can't manage anyone else until you learn how to manage yourself, which is a really important point. And I was like, that's key. First of all, figure out what's going on in here. And someone asked, is this program appropriate if you can't hear your inner voice? And I would say, heck yeah, because we're going to give you so many tools, techniques, and practices that are going to enable that. I mean, Sibyl called it chief negativity officer, which is her code language for the thing that's going on so loud inside your head that you can't, it drowns out what this other, I'll just use my language for a moment, soul voice is saying inside each and every one of us, wanting our attention, if only there can be some quieting so that it can emerge. So yes, the program is designed to give you ready and reliable access to that. And then move it into these 2-week sprints where you actualize step by step by step what you're being guided to do. Here as we end, I first want to just thank Tama. Thank you for being part of this conversation, for your love that you pour into everything that you do, for being part of the Inner MBA. You'll be teaching a special session on how we can turn obstacles into the path, because yes, obstacles will come up. And just for all your good work, for all the many books in your current book, Learning to Trust Yourself, I want to thank you. As we conclude, I want to give all of our listeners one final piece of actionable insight from each of us. And I'm going to go first, and then I'm going to turn it over to each of you. And here's something, and it was during a previous Inner MBA program where I was talking to Raw Goddess. And she said this thing to me, Tami. She said, why wouldn't you be paid the most to do the thing that only you can do? Why do you think you'd make more money doing this thing that other people can do than doing the thing that only you can do? Because this, and I'm saying that because the thing that only I can do is be this bizarre antenna for what comes through me that I feel is rooted in love, that is a gift to other people. I have to do that regardless of the outcome. All my fears about money have to be put aside so that I can do this thing that only I can do, which is what my life is now about. Okay, now that I've peeled all my skin off and shared my soul, let's see. Sibyl, over to you, and then Tama will bring us home.
I think my tip, I was just sitting here thinking like, oh gosh, what feels
You got
right?
one thing.
One thing, I'm just going to start with today and in the moment and what I did this morning, because I've been doing it every morning. And I just start off and I'm either in my bed or I'm going for a walk and I'm giving myself 5 minutes and I'm thinking, what's my thing for today? What's alive in this moment? What do I need to hear? What do I need to do? And I just have that 5 to 10 minutes. And so today, the answer was, today I'm going to just say the mantra of the word love all day. And like, what does it mean? How does it feel? And I'm just going to noodle on it. Like, that's going to be my koan for the day. And there's been something just really helpful for me of just settling in the moment and listening. And it changes every day. And I have fun with it. And then I live it and I practice it. And then tomorrow, I don't know what it'll be. I'm happy to share it if we're still talking. But to just start that day off and I'm finding like, what is that one thing? What's alive?
Beautiful.
Tama.
All right. I guess like one thing I came up with for myself that it helps me, because again, I have a mind that's trying to figure everything out and figure everything out, is that something I often say is that you can't plan an inspired life. You are not going to plan an inspired life, but your takeaway, what you can do is, like I said earlier, do something you love. Do anything you love. After hearing this, follow that love. Do something concrete that you love. I don't care if it's playing with your dog, right? I don't care if it's planting a garden, whatever it is, right? Because what I would want everyone here to know is that your desires are not frivolous. Your desires, they're your gifts. Like Tami said, there's something indispensable in you that's only in you. And it may seem weird to us, right? Because its quote doesn't fit in. But I have a feeling that we're all maverick souls. I have a feeling that we're all maverick souls. We are meant to be a difference at this time in the planet, to be peaceful, to be loving, to be happy, to be contributive, right? So just to keep that basic, it's just, again, do something you love. Value that. Value the desire. Take a step. It will give you energy, and you'll know the next step from there.
Okay, friends, here as we conclude, we're going to keep the chat open for a little bit. You ready? And you can write in, what's your one thing that you want to leave the rest of us with? You've been listening to this dialogue. Your own soul voice is sharing wisdom and inspiration with your maverick soul. We'll just keep the chat open. Matt, is there a way that we can do that while we say goodbye and put the screen up and just let people speak to each other here for a few minutes, as long as they want to stay on? Let's see, I threw a curveball, but that's what being a Maverick Soul is all
They're
about.
doing it. They're doing it. Janet said she's so ready to make it not so hard.
All right, wonderful. Anything that occurs to you, friends. We will leave the chat open. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye and wish everyone well. Thank you so much for being with us here. The quiet inner voice is right.
It is right. Thanks. So great to see
Thanks,
you all.
friends.
Thanks all.